A pest once believed to be eradicated is now costing ranchers millions of dollars in Texas. A screwworm was discovered on a cow near Mexico's border with Guatemala. And in response, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has banned Mexican cattle imports. Joining us this afternoon to talk about the impacts of it is Pooja Salhotra with the Texas Tribune. Pooja, thanks for being with us again. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start with talking about what a screwworm is and what its impacts on the environment can be.
Sure. So screwworm is a parasite that mostly affects livestock, but it actually can impact any warm-blooded animal. And essentially, it's a fly that digs into basically any wound on a livestock's body, and it's their larva, when they reproduce, a female can lay up to 300 eggs at a time. So you can imagine just the impact that can have on an animal. And it has historically affected the U.S. and just cost ranchers thousands upon thousands of dollars trying to save their animals from this devastating disease.
Certainly not the most appetizing topic to discuss this afternoon, but you mentioned there the economic impact this is having on ranchers. Why is it so costly?
Yeah, well, there's two things going on. So right now, the USDA has actually halted imports of Mexican cattle because of this one cattle being found at the southern border, like you mentioned, with screwworm. And so by cutting off those cattle, that is having an economic impact because ranchers who usually do rely on this Mexican cattle here in Texas don't have access to that cattle. So especially folks on the border are saying that it's affecting their businesses, and it could down the line affect things like beef prices because we could see a shortage of beef. The other thing is that if the screwworm were to enter the country, which right now is extremely unlikely just with this ban in place. But if it were to come in, that in itself would have a huge economic consequence. Experts tell me that by not having screwworm, we're saving the economy about $1 billion just because of all the money it takes to try to eradicate it.
People may have had their ears perk up just a little bit with that last answer. So can you talk to us about how this could impact the price that people pay for meat when they go to the grocery store?
Sure, yeah. And again, I think that we just putting this into kind of a larger context on the national scale, Mexican cattle are only 3% of U.S. cattle. So in the grand scheme, I was talking to an economist who said in the grand scheme, it's unlikely to affect consumers. But here in Texas, which is, one of, I think, the greatest producer of beef in the country, it is going to have an inordinate impact, particularly on those farmers. And, if the ban continues for a long time, that's when the price impacts could occur. The USDA said that they're trying to get the imports going soon. So we'll see just kind of how long this ban stays in effect.
All right. Well, if you would like to read more about Pooja's reporting, you can find it on the Texas Tribune's website. For now, though, Pooja Salhotra, thanks again for being with us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.